just so that we can submit this form for you to get feedback next week.
Sounds good, Ellen.
Cool.
Sounds good.
All right, so my first question for you is, what were you doing before Year Up? How did you hear about the program, and what made you decide to join?
Okay, it's a great question. I heard about Year Up in 2010, and that's when I graduated high school. So I got to know Year Up at a high school presentation, and right after graduation, during that summertime, I had a choice to make. Either go to Year Up or go to community college. I had to make a tough choice, but I decided to go to community college first because that's a place where I can develop my English, writing skills, reading, because I knew that I wouldn't be ready for such a demanding program like this. So I went to City, graduated in 3 years, and did receive my AS in social and behavioral science. Then, 3 years later, I also received a mail from Year Up through an outreach because Year Up and San Francisco Housing Authority, where I live at now with my family, Year Up was outreach to all the young adults who lived in Housing Authority in San Francisco. So 3 years later, I received that mail, and then I go out to one of the info sessions. That's how I met So in 2013. I was the only one there, so I had one-on-one time with So, which is a good thing, but a bad thing because, unfortunately, I was the only one. And the outreach was a beautiful opportunity, but no one took the initiative. So I applied and did not get accepted the first time. So I decided to go to SC State. And then after State, after 2 years, I passed a few courses, but I also realized I had some academic insecurities. And I passed some courses, and I didn't pass others. And then my GPA fell a bit lower than I wanted to. So I decided to take a break. And then also, a few months ago, I decided to apply to the program again and give it another go. Thankfully, things are going the way that I planned, and I'm really happy to be here. And so for 6 years, Europe has always been in the back of my mind. For 6 years. And I knew that this was a chance for me to, even though things have not been good in academics, I want to be able to learn about myself, gain the drive and the confidence to either pursue a professional career or go back to my academics, because that is something that I do want to do eventually. But right now, I think financial stability is my priority.
Great.
So that's how I heard about Year Up, and I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome.
Can you tell us why you want to work in tech?
Yes. So tech, before coming to Year Up, was such an interesting field. I never had any experience in it. That was my biggest growth area coming into the program, and I knew that I was going to struggle. And being that the tech industry is such a growing and evolving industry, it's something that I think every young individual should learn. Year Up gives you that opportunity. So even though that I've never thought about doing tech before getting into the program, I knew this was nonetheless a beautiful opportunity to not only learn about tech, but just polish on your professionalism and grow as a successful young adult. And so I'm beginning to learn about tech right now. I'm learning web development. I've gained a little bit of experience in networking. I've also learned the crucial components of the hardware components within a computer. So having all that knowledge is giving me the experience and better understanding of the tech industry. And so given an opportunity to, for example, be at a track in IT or anything that's involving the tech industry, that's a great learning experience. So I'm still growing and understanding this vast field and industry. But it's interesting because it's always evolving, and it's interesting to be part of that evolution.
Great, thanks.
Yes.
What has been your biggest growth area or challenge during L&D, and how have you worked to overcome that?
Ooh, this is good because my biggest challenge at L&D was one of the first tech classes that I took in, which was web development, front-end web development. And I'm still experiencing a challenge today. But I've grown and acquired a lot of skills, and I'm becoming a little bit better. But developing our own websites and understanding the coding languages in HTML, CSS, and now my newly acquired learning experience in JavaScript, it's still challenging. But that's the biggest challenge that I got so far in L&D. And even though that's one of my biggest growth areas, I've taken the initiative to be part of the coding elective offered here at Year Up, been accepted, and now I'm also taking a class that not only putting myself in a potentially uncomfortable situation, but I do want to learn this skill. All right? I believe that it's valuable to be a well-rounded professional, and that includes developing your growth areas. And for me, That's tech and web development.
Great. What is the job description, the internship that you decided on?
Can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, you chose an internship description. Which one was that?
Project coordination is my
Okay,
number one choice.
Perfect. Can you tell us why you would be a strong candidate for that?
Of course, Iris. Some of my strengths that I've heard from my colleagues and my fellow instructors here at Europe, those strengths revolve around being able to facilitate meetings, very good at public speaking, organization, and now beginning to learn the skills of Excel. I believe those skill sets will propel me into a potential internship as a project coordinator. Furthermore, there's still a lot of skills for me to learn. And so, being that this is a potential career that's out there, having the chance to be a part of this internship is not only going to allow me to use the strong skill set that I have now through my learning experience at L&D, I'm also going to be learning more advanced skills, maybe working with other professionals, continue to expand the network, maybe experimenting more with Excel. So I have a strong skill from now, but being part of this internship is going to help me develop on those skills, maybe even learning new ones.
What would you describe as your strongest hard skills?
One of my strongest hard skills would be is identifying the components of a computer, such as the motherboard. Knowing how to break down a computer and just identifying the different components. So we have the motherboard, the CPU, the hard drive, and then where the additional video cards can be, expansion cards. Before Europe, I never broken down a computer before. Never knew what it looked like inside. And so having this exposure and experience, hands-on experience, that's something that I've gained. And that's something that I can talk about with my fellow colleagues or individuals outside of the program. And that's actually a hard skill that I can now talk about in LinkedIn or in my resume, right? It may not be advanced, but it's the exposure that counts.
Let's see. Tell me about a time when you worked on a group project, and how did you decide to break up the tasks?
Okay. So in our business communications course here at Europe, we needed to come up with a project where it was a group of 6 of us, and the goal was to come up with an invention or an app. And so it was about 4 or 5 of us actually. And in that group, a lot of us were leaders. So we decided to divide the task into one individual would be taking notes down. We decided that one person would be focusing more on the business plan of this particular assignment. Another one would be doing the research, for example. One person would be the creative or thinking of the ideas. And so each individual had their proper role. One of my roles was to help take notes during our meetings. And so that's kind of one way that we decided to divide the responsibilities within that overall project.
Great, thanks.
I want you to imagine that you're working at a tech company for your internship, and your manager has asked you to complete a high-profile project, which means that the finished product is going to be seen by some executives in the company. You have no idea where to start, and you didn't learn the skills that you need to complete this task during L&D. How would you move from there?
Okay. So Ellen, the question was if there's... Can you repeat the question one more time, actually, Ellen?
So you are working at a tech company, and your manager has given you a high-profile project, meaning that the stakes are high. You have no idea how to start, and you didn't learn the skills that you need to complete this project during L&D. How should you proceed?
Okay. So immediately is checking in with your manager. That's important. Checking with your manager, and then discuss the skill sets that you currently have. And then find out what the expectations are from your manager. Have that formal communication established. And if there is necessary trainings that needs to be established, then finding that mutual time to establish that potential training is crucial. Because what's important here is getting the task done, but also communicating that there's still skills that we need to learn. And communicating that with the manager is crucial. Because if we don't advocate for ourselves in a setting that way, then we're setting ourselves up for potential failure, which does not look good for Europe. It does not look good for our own professional brand, and it does not look good for that overall relationship. So step one is to establish communication. Step two is to maybe find a mutual time to do a training. And then step three, find a common ground where the person, in this case myself, feels comfortable to proceed with the project. And then step four is to establish that continuing support as the project is being completed.
Great. Let's say you have a remote manager who's always busy and you have a lot of downtime on your internship. What strategy or plan would you set in for the short term and the long term to address this issue?
Okay. So in a potential environment like this, if there's a lot of downtime, then if I'm assigned within a team, talking to the individuals who are part of that team, if there's any assignments that they need help with, then kind of taking the initiative to reach out and ask if there's anything that needs to be done, if they need any assistance. Because a lot of times in this professional setting, a lot of your colleagues will be so busy with their work. And then asking them if they need help with anything can actually, it's inviting. So for the short-term goal is to take the initiative to find special projects, to utilize your time. That way you can grow, you'll learn, and at the same time you're practicing your networking skills. Now in terms of the long run, if the manager is not being transparent with the progress that we're going through as growing professionals, then I believe it's strongly wise to maybe send an email or communicate with the manager through maybe a status report and discuss what's going on with the short-term goals and what you're learning, what projects have you worked on, and maybe talk about setting up a meeting so that you can talk about the project that you completed, and then potentially addressing the fact that the transparent communication is not there, and that as growing professionals, we would love to get feedback and just work closely with the manager.
Can you tell me about a time when you failed the first time and then you succeeded later? And what was the difference in between those two instances?
I'm going to use the example here with my experience with the admissions process at Europe. Back in 2013 when I first applied, my interests were slightly different. I was a bit more interested in politics, things of that nature. And I expressed that during the interview process. And the person I was interviewing with later told me through an email, described that my interests and the goals at Europe weren't completely aligned, and that I should instead pursue higher education. I took that feedback. Fine, and I did pursue my educational goals. But I still nonetheless felt that my application was very strong and that I could still benefit from this program. And then going through my experiences 2 years after that, experiencing academic insecurities and now being here, first of all, being here is helping me out in finding ways to manage my academic insecurities by building confidence and being part of a community that's very supportive. And so having this failure and now reapplying again because I still knew that I could be of value to this community is a big boost in my confidence. And I think the important part here is that even though that I failed in the past, still taking the initiative to reapply because I knew that I could have a strong value in this community. I think that's the important part there.
Let's do the tech demo.